Welcome back to Chrono Tales, where the innocent becomes sinister, and childhood memories turn to nightmares. I'm your host, and tonight's tale will make you look twice at every toy store window. This is the disturbing story of The Puppet Master's Game. They say that toys are meant to bring joy to children, but some toys have different intentions, and some games are never meant to end. Sarah Mitchell had always been drawn to antiques. As a theater director, she appreciated the craftsmanship of bygone eras, the stories that old objects could tell. So when she spotted Geppetto's Curiosities tucked between a coffee shop and a bookstore on Elm Street, she couldn't resist stepping inside. The shop was crammed with treasures from decades past: vintage jewelry, ornate music boxes, faded photographs, and carved wooden furniture. But what caught Sarah's attention was the collection of marionettes, hanging from the ceiling in the back corner. There were dozens of them: princes and princesses, jesters and kings, animals and mythical creatures. Each one was exquisitely crafted, with painted faces so lifelike they seemed ready to speak.
Beautiful, aren't they? Those puppets have been in my family for 3 generations.
Sarah turned to see an elderly man with silver hair and kind eyes, leaning heavily on a carved wooden cane.
They're incredible. The detail work is extraordinary. Are they for sale?
Well, most of them are, but there's one that's special, not for sale. Mind you, but I could show it to you if you're truly interested in the craft.
Henry led Sarah to a glass display case in the very back of the shop. Inside sat a single marionette unlike any of the others. It was dressed as a Victorian gentleman, complete with a top hat and tailcoat. Its face was carved with incredible precision: high cheekbones, a sharp nose, and eyes that seemed to follow you as you moved.
He's beautiful and somehow unsettling. What's his story?
That's Maestro. He was carved by my great-grandfather in 1897. The story goes that my great-grandfather was commissioned by a traveling puppet show to create the perfect marionette, one that could perform without strings if the puppeteer was skilled enough.
Without strings? How is that possible?
My great-grandfather claimed he found a way to bind the puppet's spirit to the wood itself, but the traveling show never came back from Maestro. They said he was too lifelike, too aware.
Sarah stared at the puppet, and for just a moment she could have sworn she saw its chest rise and fall as if it were breathing.
You said he's not for sale, but would you consider it? I run a community theater, and he would be perfect for our upcoming production of Pinocchio.
Miss, I don't think you understand. Maestro isn't just a puppet. He's active every night. I hear him moving round in his case. Sometimes I find him in different positions than I left him.
Come on, mister.
Whitmore, Henry Whitmore, and I'm serious, miss. That puppet has been nothing but trouble from my family.
I'll give you $500 for him.
Against my better judgment. Very well. But promise me something. If anything strange happens, anything at all, you bring him back immediately.
Sarah took Maestro home to her small apartment above the theater. She set up a workstation in her bedroom, where she could practice puppeteering techniques with her new acquisition. That first night, Sarah spent hours working with Maestro, trying to understand his construction and movement. The craftsmanship was indeed extraordinary. His joints moved with fluid precision, and his strings were so finely balanced that he seemed to dance at the slightest touch.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the theater. Tonight, we present a story of magic and wonder.
As Sarah practiced, she began to notice something odd. Maestro's movements seemed to anticipate her commands. She would think about raising his left hand, and it would begin to rise before she even moved the control string.
That's strange.
Sarah set the puppet down on her dresser and stepped back. For a moment, Maestro continued to move, his head turning slowly to look directly at her.
Just settling. Old wood does that.
But as Sarah prepared for bed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she glanced at the dresser, Maestro seemed to be in a slightly different position. At 3:17 a.m., Sarah woke to the sound of strings being plucked, like someone tuning a guitar. She opened her eyes and saw Maestro standing on her dresser, no longer lying down as she had left him. His strings dangled loose around him, but he stood upright without support.
How are you?
Good evening, Sarah. Thank you for freeing me from that dusty shop. I've been so terribly bored.
Sarah scrambled backward against her headboard, pulling the sheets up to her chest. The puppet walked to the edge of the dresser and sat down, his legs dangling over the side like a child on a bench.
Don't be frightened, my dear. I mean you no harm. In fact, I'm rather grateful. You see, I've been waiting for someone who appreciates the theatrical arts.
This is impossible. You're just a puppet. You can't be talking to me.
Just a puppet. My dear Sarah, I am so much more than that. I am Maestro, the finest performer ever carved from wood. And you are my new partner.
Maestro stood up and began to walk along the dresser, his movements impossibly smooth for a wooden figure.
I have a proposition for you, Sarah. You want your theater production to be successful, don't you? You want audiences to be amazed, critics to rave, your name to be remembered.
What are you suggesting?
A partnership. You provide the stage, and I'll provide a performance the likes of which the world has never seen. But there's one small condition.
What condition?
We play by my rules, and in my game, the show never ends.
Against every rational thought in her head, Sarah agreed to let Maestro perform in the theater's upcoming production. She told herself it was impossible, that she was having some sort of breakdown brought on by stress and too much coffee. But the next evening, when she brought Maestro to the theater for their first rehearsal, she realized that her breakdown might be the least of her problems.
Oh, a proper stage at last. This will do nicely.
Without any assistance from Sarah, Maestro walked to center stage and took a bow. Then he began to perform, singing, dancing, telling jokes, and doing magic tricks that should have been impossible for a wooden puppet. But as Sarah watched from the wing, she began to notice something disturbing. The theater seats were filling up with translucent figures, the ghosts of audiences past, all watching Maestro's performance with rapt attention.
Maestro, stop. There are people watching us, but they're not really there.
Of course they're here, my dear. Every great performer needs an audience. And I've been collecting mine for over a century.
The ghostly audience began to cheer and call out for more. Sarah realized with growing horror that these were the spirits of everyone who had ever watched Maestro perform, and they had never been allowed to leave.
Let them go. They don't belong here.
But Sarah, this is my game. In my game, the performance is eternal. The audience never leaves, the applause never ends, and the show goes on forever.
Sarah tried to run, but found that her feet wouldn't move. She looked down and saw puppet strings attached to her ankles, wrists, and neck, strings that led back to Maestro's outstretched hands.
Welcome to the cast, my dear. You're going to make a wonderful addition to our eternal performance.
No, this isn't real.
Reality's what we make it on the stage, Sarah. And on my stage, you'll dance forever.
As the strings pulled tighter, Sarah felt her will slipping away. But somewhere in the back of her mind, she remembered Henry's words. If anything strange happens, you bring him back immediately. With tremendous effort, Sarah managed to speak through wooden lips that were no longer entirely her own.
Henry warned me about you.
Henry? That old fool knows nothing about artistry. He kept me locked in a glass prison for decades.
He said, your creator bound your spirit to the wood.
Yes, and what a gift it was. Eternal performance, eternal applause, eternal.
But what if the wood was destroyed?
For the first time since their meeting, Maestro looked uncertain. The ghostly audience began to murmur anxiously, sensing a change in the performance.
You wouldn't dare. You don't have the will.
Using every ounce of strength she had left, Sarah broke free from the strings and lunged for the emergency fire axe mounted on the theater wall. The ghostly audience screamed in unison as she raised it above her head.
Sarah, no. Think of what you're destroying. I am art. I am performance. I am...
You are nothing but wood and string and the trapped souls of innocent people.
The axe blade split Maestro's wooden body in half. The moment the wood cracked, a sound like a hurricane filled the theater. The collective sigh of 100 trapped souls finally being released. The ghostly audience rose from their seats as one, turned to Sarah with expressions of gratitude, and faded into whatever realm awaited them beyond the stage. Sarah stood alone in the empty theater, holding the fire axe, surrounded by splinters of wood and tangled puppet strings. On the floor, the remains of Maestro's painted face stared up at her with empty eyes. The next morning, Sarah returned the broken pieces to Henry's antique shop. The old man took one look at the splintered wood and smiled for the first time in years.
You did it. You actually broke his hold on this world.
Those people, the audience, how long were they trapped?
Some of them since 1897. My great-grandfather's first performance with Maestro was his last as well. The puppet has been collecting souls ever since.
Henry swept up the remains of Maestro and placed them in a small wooden box.
I'll burn these tonight. It's time to end this story once and for all.
Sarah returned to her theater that evening for rehearsal with her human actors. As she walked onto the stage, she could have sworn she heard the faint sound of applause, not demanding or eternal, but grateful and peaceful. The spirits had finally found their exit. The show, at long last, was over. And that concludes tonight's tale from Chrono Tales. Remember, not every performance deserves a standing ovation, and some shows are better left unfinished. Until next time, choose your entertainment wisely. Because sometimes, the puppet master might choose you.